When you are drawing out your name here, you want to make sure that you're drawing very lightly, because then when you erase that center line, or if you have to erase it all, then it's a lot easier to erase without having those lines show through, and it keeps that quality higher. Now for dividing your background, I do kind of these little wavy lines. I'm not overly picky as to how you want to do this. You can do straight lines, you can make them even. However, have fun with it though. There's a checklist on Google Classroom that you can use for each of the elements so that you don't miss any of these. When drawing out my color section, I decided just to do some fun patterns. The biggest thing is you want to make sure you have enough sections to draw multiple colors in, so don't keep it too simple. Value is similar. You don't even have to do the lines that I do here. It kind of depends on the style that you're going for, but I thought it'd just be easier if I broke it into different sections there. Now, shapes, you can do just basic triangles, circles, squares, stuff like that. Stars, hearts, not too picky, but shapes are also organic shapes as well. So you can do squiggly lines. The definition of a shape is just a line that's enclosed. So you can have fun with what your shape is. It just needs to be two-dimensional. Now your form is basically your shapes, but now they're three-dimensional. So how can you make those shapes look like they're kind of popping off the page a little bit? So you might need to look up some reference images for those. And a lot of times it's just shading that takes it to the next level. Textures, look around your house, look around your room, think about your clothes. You can always just look up pictures on Google. There are a ton of different ways of drawing out textures. So I just draw a couple here as starting points, but make sure to try out quite a few because these can be kind of fun to draw out. Now for space here, I'm looking for three things. It should be having a foreground, a midground, and a background. So that means that there should be things that look like they're closer to you, things that are a little bit farther away, and things that are really far away. So we'll go over that more in depth in class, but otherwise this is kind of an example of what I'm looking for. So my cowboy would be in my foreground. The cacti, tumbleweeds, rocks, stuff like that, that's in the midground. And then the mountains are in the background. So things look like they're going back in space. For line, you can do all sorts of different lines. We got straight, we got zigzag, we got curvy, we have dashed. You can do multiple in one letter. You can do different ones in each letter. You can mix it up with that. For the coloring of this project, you can use whatever materials you would like. Color pencils, crayons, markers, whatever your preference, mix them up, doesn't matter. I actually do that throughout mine as I use different ones. Now I start with outlining everything in this black, or you could do any dark color depending on what vibe you're going for. But I just want to make sure that my name and my labels and each of my sections are well defined so that they stand out. And I just think it makes it look a little bit neater having it like that. Now for the coloring, like I said, you should be demonstrating that you understand color by using multiple different types of color. And so I use your basic red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, but I also do red, orange, yellow, green, blue, green, etc. I make sure I have those intermediate colors so it shows that I truly understand what color is. Now value, you can use crayons, color pencils, markers. I think it's just easier just to do with a pencil, so that's kind of why I chose this. Now I started out with each section, I started out with the one that's really, really dark, and then I get a little bit lighter, and then a little bit lighter, and I go each section by each section. And so you should have a nice gradual transition from really dark to really light, and then that way you're having each in between. Now if you need to lighten up anything, erasers help with that. If you want to smooth it out, you can use a Kleenex, a Q-tip, or just your finger just to kind of rub it out there. Now when I'm coloring my shape, I decide to use marker because I think that will help them pop out. And this is just one technique that you can do. And then each of the shapes, I keep the same color with the same type of shape. So after I have them all on the marker, I go through with the colored pencil very lightly in the background, so that way my shapes pop out nicely. Not required, but just a technique. So now, like I said earlier, when you're making your forms, you actually use shading most of the time to help make them look more three-dimensional. So sometimes this can take a little bit of practice, but basically in order to make a form, you're literally taking value, another element, plus shape, another element, in order to make form, which is another element. Now here I'm doing a similar technique as before, but instead of marker, I'm using crayons, and then I use the colored pencil to make sure that it kind of layers on top, but also can pop out nicely. So just another technique for you. When coloring texture, I do the same thing as I did with form there. I actually use crayon to make sure that those lines and those details are popping out nicely. And then I take colored pencil to layer on top. Now, another colored pencil technique that you can kind of see that I'm going to be using here is that instead of just using plain brown to go over the entire thing, I start with that, but then I layer other colors like yellow and orange to make it a nice, rich, more unique brown. So something to make sure that you're trying out with colored pencil is layering. You can see in this space example that I actually do some more layering with the colored pencil, but I'm also applying value. That really does help that space kind of pop out a little bit more. I want the sand to kind of be not as much of a focus point, so I keep it a little bit lighter. I want the eye to be drawn to the cacti and then the cowboy, so you can really tell the difference in that space piece. So just other ways of creating that space and emphasizing it. Like I said earlier, I wouldn't draw out all of your lines because it seems kind of like a pain to sit and do and then try and trace over all of them. So I'm using crayon to do my lines now, and that's so that it matches all those dividing lines before, as well as the outlines that I used for my name. So you can choose to do something different. That's just what I did. But you can see the different types of lines that I'm using throughout. And if you can imagine, I would not want to be drawing all of these multiple times. So try different thicknesses, try different styles. I'm looking for your knowledge on this. So the more you do, the better. So color has different types of colors, value, it's dark to light, shape, different types of shapes. Form has 3-dimensional shapes. Texture, you have multiple different types of textures. Space has things going back in space, and line has different types of lines. Good luck.